Please video like and subscribe this channel. She chose freedom over marriage, only one human chose to protect her. The announcement shook 3 star systems before it even reached the outer colonies. Princess Lorraine of the Thalarin Dominion, first daughter of the imperial line, future inheritor of the Spiral Crown, had refused the Unity marriage. Not postponed. Not negotiated. Refused. Among the Thalarin, royal marriages were not romantic ceremonies, they were political anchors that stabilized alliances spanning dozens of civilizations. For nearly 2,000 years, every heir had accepted the binding union selected by the High Council. Entire wars had been prevented by those marriages. Which meant Princess Lorraine's refusal was not simply scandalous. It was dangerous. And somehow, against all logic, I ended up being the one ordered to escort her. My name is Daniel Hale, Diplomatic Security Officer for the Human Coalition, one of the smaller powers operating along the Dominion's frontier. We weren't important enough to influence Thalarin politics, but we were considered neutral enough to be useful. That's why I was standing inside the silverlit docking hall of Palace Station Aurelian, waiting for a royal exile. When the doors finally opened, I understood immediately why the situation had escalated so quickly. Princess Lorraine didn't look like someone who had just surrendered her future. She looked like someone who had decided to fight for it. Tall, slender, her skin faintly luminescent in the Thalarin way, she wore no ceremonial crown, no royal mantle, only a simple dark travel cloak. Her eyes, pale violet and steady, scanned the hall not with fear, but determination. Behind her, a group of Dominion officials watched with thinly concealed disapproval. "This is the human escort," one of them muttered. I stepped forward. "Officer Hale. Assigned to your transport detail, Your Highness." "Lorraine," she said calmly. "Titles are unnecessary where I'm going." That alone told me this mission was not going to be simple. The Dominion had not imprisoned her for refusing the marriage, doing so would spark public outrage, but they also couldn't allow her to move freely without supervision. Their solution was elegant: assign a neutral escort and quietly move her to an isolated diplomatic residence until the political storm settled. Officially, I was there to protect her. Unofficially, I was also there to ensure she didn't disappear. As we walked toward the transport shuttle, she spoke without looking at me. "They expect you to report everything I do." "I report security threats," I replied. "And if I become one? Then I'll tell them someone is threatening you." That made her glance at me for the first time. "You are either very brave," she said, "or very reckless. Occupational hazard." The shuttle lifted off smoothly, leaving the glowing arc of Palace Station behind us. Once we reached cruising speed, the cabin lights dimmed automatically. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, she asked, "Do humans often refuse arranged political unions?" "Depends who's asking. Governments? Rarely. Individuals? All the time. And your societies survive this chaos. Sometimes the chaos is what keeps them flexible." She considered that quietly. "My refusal may destabilize several alliance networks," she said. "Some believe it could even trigger conflict." "Do you think it will?" "I think," she replied, "that systems which depend on unwilling obedience are already unstable." That was not the answer of someone acting impulsively. That was the answer of someone who had thought about this for years. 3 hours into the journey, our escort frigate transmitted an alert. An unidentified vessel had entered our route corridor. "Probably nothing," I told her, though I was already checking the defensive systems. "Not nothing," she said softly. "Some factions prefer simple solutions." "You mean kidnapping? Or assassination?" A royal heir who causes instability is considered expendable by certain traditionalists. I didn't like that at all. Moments later, the sensor display confirmed it: 3 fast approach signatures, running without identification codes. Definitely not nothing. The first attack came without warning. A pulse blast struck the escort frigate, forcing it to break formation. Our shuttle's automated defenses activated, but we were a transport, not a warship. Hold on, I said, strapping into the pilot seat and overriding autopilot. You are trained for this. Coalition security doesn't hire people who panic easily. Another blast streaked past the viewport, close enough to shake the hull. They're not trying to destroy us yet, I said. They want us disabled. Alive targets are politically convenient, she replied. I angled the shuttle into a defensive spiral, pushing the engines harder than they were designed for. Warning indicators flashed, but the maneuver bought us distance. The attackers adjusted quickly. Professional. That meant someone important had hired them. Why did you refuse the marriage? I asked while rerouting power to the maneuvering thrusters. Because it would have bound my world to policies I believe will lead to expansion wars, she said calmly, despite the incoming fire. And because I refuse to become a ceremonial hostage to decisions I cannot influence. That's a big reason. My people are told the marriage will ensure peace, she continued. I believe it will ensure obedience. Another impact rocked the shuttle. I'm starting to see why someone wants you quiet, I muttered. A direct hit finally crippled our long-range communications. The escort frigate was still fighting, but too far to provide immediate cover. They'll board us, I said. Then they will expect surrender. And they won't get it. I handed her a compact emergency shield device. Stay behind me if they breach. You intend to confront armed attackers alone? I intend to slow them down long enough for reinforcements. She studied me for a moment. You realize protecting me could put you in direct conflict with Dominion internal factions. Protecting people is literally my job description. Even when it is politically inconvenient. Especially then. Something in her expression softened slightly. The boarding clamps struck the hull minutes later. Metal screamed as cutting tools began slicing through the outer airlock. I positioned myself behind the internal barrier, pulse sidearm ready. Officer Hale, she said quietly, if capture becomes unavoidable, do not sacrifice yourself unnecessarily. I glanced back at her. That's a very royal thing to say. It is a practical thing to say. Well, I replied, here's the practical problem. If they take you, the political fallout could destabilize half the sector. So I'd say keeping you free is pretty necessary. For the first time since I had met her, she smiled faintly. The breach opened with a burst of sparks. 3 armored figures stepped through, weapons raised. Stand down, one of them ordered. The princess will be transferred into protective custody. Funny, I said, raising my own weapon. She's already in protective custody. They fired first. The corridor filled with flashing light and the sharp crack of pulse shots. I ducked behind the barrier, returning controlled bursts, forcing them to slow their advance. The narrow passage worked in my favor. Only one attacker could move forward at a time. Reinforcements are 6 minutes out, the shuttle AI announced. 6 minutes can feel like an eternity in a firefight. One attacker managed to push forward, nearly breaking through the barrier. I shifted position and triggered the emergency compartment seal, trapping him between 2 closing bulkheads. The others fell back briefly, reassessing. You cannot hold us indefinitely, one of them called. I don't need indefinitely, I replied. Just long enough. Behind me, I heard the princess activate the shield device, its faint energy hum filling the cabin. You fight with unusual determination, she said. I take my assignments seriously. That is not the only reason. No, I admitted. It isn't. The next few minutes blurred into motion, defensive shots, repositioning, the steady countdown ticking in my ear. When the escort frigate finally returned and deployed boarding counter teams, the attackers retreated almost instantly, detaching their clamps and vanishing into hyperspace before identification could be confirmed. Silence returned to the shuttle. I lowered my weapon slowly. "Well," I said, exhaling, "that answers whether someone wants you stopped." She stepped forward, the shield fading. "You placed yourself directly between me and armed soldiers," she said. "That's the job." "No," she replied softly. "Many would have chosen survival over duty." I shrugged. "Someone has to choose differently." We reached the diplomatic residence hours later, the attack already sparking political investigation across the Dominion. Security around the facility increased dramatically, but inside the quiet garden courtyard, for the first time since departure, things felt calm. She stood beside the reflecting pool, watching the faint glow of the sky. "My refusal was meant to protect my people's future," she said. "I expected opposition. I did not expect someone outside my civilization to stand with me. I didn't stand with a political decision," I said. "I stood with a person who didn't want her life decided for her." She turned toward me. "In my world," she said, "loyalty is often purchased with power. Yours appears to be chosen." "Sometimes," I said. "Not always. But sometimes." Weeks passed. Investigations revealed the attackers were hired by a coalition of conservative nobles hoping to force the marriage by creating a crisis. Public reaction to the attack shifted opinion dramatically. Many citizens began to see the princess not as a reckless heir, but as someone targeted for independent thinking. Her popularity grew. Political pressure forced the council to suspend the unity marriage indefinitely. And when the official announcement came, she requested one unexpected addition. At the formal assembly, before diplomats, counselors, and military leaders, Princess Lorraine stepped forward and addressed the chamber. "I chose freedom," she said, "not for rebellion, but for responsibility. A ruler who cannot choose her own path cannot protect the paths of her people." Then she turned slightly toward where I stood with the security delegation. "When threats arose," she continued, "many hesitated. One individual did not. Every eye in the chamber shifted toward me. Protection," she said, "is not measured by strength alone, but by the willingness to stand when it would be easier to step aside." She inclined her head, an acknowledgement rarely given by royalty. "And that is why I remain free today." Later, as the assembly dispersed, she approached me quietly. "You may return to coalition service now," she said. "Your assignment is complete." "Glad things worked out." "They did not work out," she replied. "They were defended." She paused. "If I had chosen the marriage," she added, "history would have continued unchanged. Because I chose freedom and someone chose to protect that decision, history shifted." I smiled slightly. "Sometimes all it takes is one stubborn decision. And one stubborn protector," she said. For a moment, the noise of the court faded around us. The crisis had passed. The alliances held. The future remained uncertain, but no longer predetermined. She had chosen freedom. And for once in the long history of empires, that choice had survived because someone, somewhere, decided it was worth protecting.